Okay, so this is Unit 3, Section 4. So 3.4. So, listen up, guys. Guys. Shh. Thank you. So, Unit 3, just go back to your seat. You don't need to sit right there. Go back to your seat. Thank you. Okay, so, Unit 3... Guys, listen up. Unit 3 only has 4 sections of notes. So tomorrow, I will be checking Unit 3 notes. Some of you guys, Michael, keep your head up, please. Some of you guys, I still need to check Unit 2 notes, so I'll go back and check those tomorrow if I need to. You need to be keeping all of these in a binder somewhere, in a folder. I don't care. You can keep them in the closet over there if you want to, but you are responsible for keeping track of them. So tomorrow, I will be checking Unit 3 notes. You should have 4 sections. So if you've been absent, get on Google Classroom. You can see exactly what we did on the days you missed. And if we did notes, there will be PDFs you can print out, or you can come see me and I will give you paper copies. But you need to, if you are absent, you are responsible for getting on Google Classroom and seeing what you missed. I try to be very intentional about making it as easy as possible to get caught up by putting videos and all the notes sheets and homework sheets we do. So that's your responsibility. So 3.4. So what we're looking at is we are looking at, the topic is zeros of functions. So we are introducing a new word. So this unit isn't necessarily super hard math-wise. We're not doing any new hard math stuff. It's just kind of knowing what words mean. So a zero of a function, and we're going to talk about what a zero means. So the definition of a zero is if I'm looking at a graph, so if I give you a graph, it's the points, so it could be point or points, it could be 1 point or multiple points, the point or points where the graph touches the x-axis, touches or crosses the x-axis. Okay, it is the point where the graph touches or crosses the x-axis. That is a zero. So if I'm looking at a graph, you're going to look and see where does this graph cross or touch the x-axis. Not super hard math-wise. Not a lot of work involved. Michael, keep your head up, please. Gage, keep your head up, please. Okay, if I'm using algebraically, it is the x values when f of x equals 0. So if I'm doing it algebraically, which isn't going to be that hard, once we look at these notes, I think it will be pretty straightforward. Algebraically, it's the x values when f of x equals 0. F of x is the same thing as what? Y. So it's when f of x equals 0 or y equals 0. It doesn't matter. Either way, it is the same thing. F of x is the same thing as y. Okay, well, there's a few other names for these. They're also called roots, x-intercepts, or solutions. So all these names mean the same thing as zeros. So if I refer to a root, I'm talking about the same thing. Where does the graph cross the x-axis? X-intercepts. Where does the graph cross the x-axis? What do you say? Solutions. Same thing. Where the graph crosses the x-axis. It's all the same thing. So, first section, we have 3 sections to look at. The first section is if I give you a graph, I want to know what are the zeros or the roots or the solutions. So if I look at this, I want to know the x values where that graph crosses the x-axis. So what point does this graph cross the x-axis? So it crosses right here, and what is the x value of that point? 2. So x is 2. That's your answer. Sometimes it will only cross once. If it's a line, it will only cross once. So that is my 0. That graph crosses, that line crosses the x-axis, the horizontal axis, when x is 2. If I look at number 2, this is called a parabola. You'll get to it in second semester of Algebra 1. And a parabola will usually hit twice. It might hit 0 or a couple times, but it could hit twice. So what are the x values where this parabola crosses the x-axis? -2, right there at -2 and 1. So x is, now we're going to use those fancy brackets because I'm listing two numbers. So x is -2 and 1. I'm putting a set, which just means I'm listing multiple x values. So -2 and 1. Okay, and that's my answer. If I look at the next one, I have a circle. I want to know the zeros. What are the zeros? So where does this circle cross the x-axis? -3, right there, and 4. So the zeros are x is -3 and 4. And I put those fancy brackets because I am just listing two x values. That is the two x values. Those are the two x values where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, how about 4? Let's look at 4. This is absolute value graph, which you'll get to later. Where does this absolute value graph cross the x-axis? What are the zeros? -3 and 3. So x is -3 and 3. And then let's look at 6 real quick. Any questions?
Why don't we do the fancy bracket?
Do what?
Why do we use fancy bracket?
It's just because I'm listing it. If you didn't put it, I wouldn't count off. But it's just because when you list multiple x values, you put brackets. Okay, let's look at 6. What's a little different about 6? It crosses 3 times. Right there, and right there. So since it crosses 3 times, I'm listing them. So you put the fancy brackets. And what are the 3 x values where it crosses? -5, 0, and 2. You guys can all do this. We are just looking at a graph and seeing where it crosses the x-axis. Okay. Now let's think about this real quick. Let's think about this. If I look at all of these points, if I look at these 3 points, what's the y value for each of these 3 points? Think about, guys, pay attention. Michael, keep your head up, please. Think about these 3 points. This is -5, 0. If I wrote down the ordered pair. This is 0, 0. And this is 2, 0. So what is the y value? Anytime I'm looking for the x-intercept or the zeros, it's on the x-axis. So what do I know about the y value for any point on the x-axis? It's 0. So if I go to the back, if I want to find the zeros, guys, if I want to find the zeros without a graph, if I want to find it by hand algebraically, we're going to set y equal to 0 because I want to know what x values have a y value of 0. What x values are on the x-axis, which means they have a y value of 0. Y is the same thing as what?
0.
Y is the same thing as f of x. It's also the same thing as 0. But y and f of x are interchangeable. So if I say set y equal to 0, if you don't have y equals, but you have f of x equals, then you just put 0 where f of x is. That's it. And then step 2 is you solve the equation for x, which you know how to do. Do not make these harder than they appear. These are not super hard. You've done this before. So, first step, since I want to know the zeros or the x-intercepts, I want to know where the y value is 0. So I'm going to take 0 and substitute that in for f of x. We did this kind of last Friday with the activity we did. If I tell you f of x is 0, you put 0 where f of x is. So now it's 0 equals 4x minus 8. I want to know my x value, so solve this equation for x. How do I solve this for x? Add 8. Add 8. 8 equals 4x. Divide by 4, 2 equals x. So don't make this harder than it is. Even though we're using fancy words like zeros and intercepts and solutions, you take f of x, set it equal to 0, and then solve that equation. Okay, a couple more, and then we'll just start the homework. Let's look at 4. If I look at 4, if I want to find the zeros, what you do is you take f of x, set it equal to 0. So 0 equals 2/3 x minus 6. Once you set it equal to 0, John, keep your head up, please. Once we set it equal to 0, you solve this equation like normal. What do I do first? Add 6. Add 6. 6 equals 2/3 x. And I have that fraction in front of the x. There's a couple ways to get rid of that fraction. What's one way to get rid of that fraction? Multiply by what?
6. Or the 3.
Yeah, there's a couple ways. I need to get rid of the 2/3, so I can multiply by the reciprocal. So I can multiply both sides by 3/2. Or I could divide by 2/3. So you could also divide by 2/3 in your calculator. Get your calculator out so we can make sure we know how to do this. So everyone have your calculator out. Make sure you know how to type this in. So practice typing this in, please.
9.
Okay, so if I do 3/2, so 3, are we done? 3 ABC button, 2. So 3/2 times 6,
9.
which is 9.
9.
Okay, so 9 equals x. So that is your 0. That is where, are we done talking over me? Because I'm kind of over it. If you want me to not explain this at all and just expect you to know how to do it, we will. So this is the x value. We done? This is the x value when y is 0. Okay, one more real quick. Let's look at 6. If I want to find the 0, I take f of x and I put 0 where f of x is. So negative 2/5 x plus 4. And then solve that equation. Minus 4 minus 4. So negative 4 equals negative 2/5 x. And then to get rid of the fraction, you have a couple options. Let's go ahead and divide by negative 2/5 so I can show you both ways to do it. If I divide by negative 2/5, when you plug it in your calculator, you have to put negative 4 divided by negative 2/5. So it's going to be negative 4 divided by negative 2/5.
10.
10. Make sure you put negatives. So x is 10. So that's all you do with those. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Go ahead and put that away. Let me get you your homework real quick. And we'll do the last section in a